Well, my name is Mart Kangro. Yeah, I'm freelance choreographer and dancer and performer. I'm studying in Tallinn and I'm working now in Tallinn also.
Manuel Pelmus, dansator și coregraf.
I'm Kroot Juraak. I'm also choreographer, dancer, performer, and based in Tallinn and in Vienna.
What can you tell me about your performance? How did you work? How was the idea that it's the base of this project that you're doing?
Well, it has quite complicated start, this project. I mean, it was actually initiated by a choreographer, German choreographer, Thomas Lehmann. Me and Kroot, we were collaborating with him. As a product of his work, there was a box of different cards with different ideas, and he asked me to put it on stage, to stage something based on these cards. And so I asked Kroot and Manuel to join us, and we tried to do something, but of course the more we were working, the more in a way apart it grew from this general idea. If you know this project of Thomas Lehmann, you can see some parallels. So this is maybe what could be said about how it started. But what we were working here was we basically are focusing maybe on three aspects every performance has to deal. It's structure, it's the material, and it's the fact of being observed. And so we sort of proposed a very specific and simple and even laconic and you could say plain structure for this piece, which is it's a trio. There's three performers, and that everybody presents something on stage, doing it one by one. So always one is performing. There are always three performers on stage, but let's say that one is always active. And two are passive, and they are passively observing, but I would say that this is also performing. And so our interest was that what can we produce, or how this kind of structure we proposed could manipulate this material we've been chosen for our work.
And the material of the work is based on your experience?
As the very basic idea was the work with systems. So we thought that CV could be also seen as a system to actually the way to systemize our life and our past. And in the very, very beginning of the project, we took a CV as a one sort of basic element of reading human being history. So let's say that this material is based on our personal experiences, but of course it varies in this sense that in a certain extent it could be very private material, but at the same time it could be very general. And actually when I said before that we were focused on the material, then our interest also was that how something which is very private or in the first glance seems very personal could be general and accessible for everyone. Therefore, I think this observation is important, that we somehow always have two people on stage also observing and taking this critical distance towards what is going on. So in sense, this sort of gives a certain freedom through these things to happen and take place, but not to question to question, yes, but not to charge upon it. Kroot wants to say something.
Each of these memories or things from our experience, we make it into a sign, so that to find out if you can read it.
Sign would be a movement.
Yeah, like Maria said, like it's a schematic. It's not a movie. We are making everything into a sign, which audience can read as well as we can, and so like to find a way to speak through this structure.
Well, one thing which interests me a lot is how the communication takes place in theater, and of course the communication takes place through the signs and the language. We could call it that in theater there's also is existing certain language. It's not Romanian, but it's the theater language. Yeah. And we don't have this kind of chronological following, so there is not that, like usually are in the stories, that, you know, they start somewhere, they develop, and the story develops, and there are these crucial moments of conflict, and then there will be a sort of, how to say, the situation will be solved, and there's an ending. So we just present these materials, we could say, in a random order. So everything could take place whatever moment.
Okay, you have autobiographical material. Some is, you know, a memory. Some are very small events in life, but none of them is emphasized more than the other. You know, we don't comment it. We don't place more weight on one. They are presented on equal foot. You know, we sort of cut any psychological level of building a play. We are quite consciously having this simple structure, which kind of just presents without necessarily pulling any conclusions or making obvious comments. Then it's there for others to maybe, you know, create their own.
They all relate to to other contexts, yeah. So they are like excerpts from the other context, and everybody could access them in an equal, level, in this sense that
the audience has. We try to give the opportunity to really observe. Also, they're observing, like that. Through the two people observing, you can take more distance from the action on stage.
In a way, I want to understand who I am. To be able to understand who I am, I need somebody else to compare, yeah? Otherwise, by my own, I can think whatever, I can be a great person. And I think theater is a very great opportunity for this, because there are people on stage and there are people witnessing it, and we share the same time and space. So for me, it's interesting to know what kind of signs we use for what. There's a lot of information put out on this in this performance, but we reduce this material really to sort of to minimum. We think it's enough to still make this link to another context, or to still communicate something about it.
To question what is theater and how it works, and who are we in this context.